gentlemen.
Unsyndicated presents Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Belegian.
All right, he's Shep. I'm Sean. Shep, let me ask you this, okay?
Glad to be back with you, my friend.
Nice to see you, pal. Hope all is well. We're going to talk a lot about the Stanley Cup. I want to get your take on what we saw last night. We talk a lot about the cautionary tale of the Chicago White Sox, and you had a real good seat for that. I'm not lying to you. I was terrified of the White Sox. I thought they were going to own the 20s. Good evening, Tom. You and I have discussed that before. What the hell happened to the Orioles? What a disaster. They are a mess.
Yeah, so you all it takes is
more afraid of them.
Yeah, all it takes is an injured pitcher and a couple of guys having some down seasons, and then suddenly maybe you lose a little bit of that clubhouse with your manager. Those are the things that scare me. I mean, this is a team that won the division a couple of years ago. What was it, 91 wins last year? They still have some incredible talent. They played pretty good baseball as of late until tonight. Torkelson with a 2-run bomb just recently. But man, I'd still take Gunnar Henderson. I'd still take Adley Rutschman. I'd still take a lot of their players. I can't. Sometimes it just doesn't click. That's why, Sean, that's why I don't believe in momentum.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm with you.
I don't believe you can carry one season into the next because different teams, the players or the teams you're playing are different as well. You know, I don't know how you feel about that. Maybe a team like Florida, the Florida Panthers are proving me wrong in that regard, and maybe Edmonton is as well.
Mm-hmm. More on that in a second.
Yeah, more on that. And good job last night on What the Puck. I think there's a couple of things that always kind of frustrate me, and I'm always looking for the opposite. So I'll be first to admit blame here. Home ice, home field, home court doesn't seem to matter as much as it used to.
Mm-hmm.
Although the Tigers are pretty damn good at home, second best record to the Mets at home. Most road wins of anybody, though. We gloss over that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the momentum thing, and then the last would be, the revenge tour. The belief that, well, they're motivated more now because they got a little bit of taste. I think we here in Detroit always fall back to what? The Pistons had to get by the Celtics. They had to learn some of those lessons, right?
Always linear. It makes me sick.
It's the same stuff.
That way.
I had somebody tell me that, well, remember, the Red Wings lost to the Devils in 95. I said, yeah, but the next year they lost to Colorado after setting the record for most points. I just don't buy that. You know what I'm saying? Those are three things I kind of fight with myself in that regard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It drives me out of my mind. And you know what, Shep, I caught myself today because, and Tom made reference of this. Oilers could be in trouble. Okay. Tom, you're not wrong. Yeah. I can't say you're wrong. Okay. But this would be my retort because I had the exact same conversation with myself this morning, okay? And conversations with yourself are magical. You like everybody should mix them in, okay? And it's not just my age anymore, okay? Like we can. You want to include that senile old man? And no, it's not my senile. Shep, are we forgetting that the Edmonton Oilers have shown moxie of their own? Are we forgetting that a year ago it looked like the Florida Panthers were going to sweep their way to the Stanley Cup and Bob was a shoo-in for the Conn Smythe Trophy? Shoo-in for the Conn Smythe Trophy. And now, Tom, do I think they're in trouble? Yeah, I think this is different. I do. I don't like what I saw at all last night out of Edmonton. And more on that in a couple seconds. But, Shep, tip of the cap, I also have to remind myself that this is a team with a lot of moxie, and they still have the best player on the planet on their squad. Period. End of story.
You could argue the two best players on the planet. If you want to put Leon Draisaitl in there. At least the best scorer on the planet. I agree 100% with you. I think Edmonton showed moxie against Los Angeles. They lost the first game, right? Or did they lose the first two? First game and then stormed their way back. I thought they showed a ton of moxie against Dallas.
Mhm.
I thought they were really impressive. You picked, so there's two things I want to give you credit for. You picked Florida from the get-go,
Mhm.
and Florida is 2 wins away from a second straight Stanley Cup. You picked Lane Hudson to win the Calder Trophy, and he did. Fourth most points by a rookie, tying Phil Housley. Most points, tied for most points ever, assists, I should say, by a rookie with Larry Murphy, our friend.
Mhm.
So I give you a ton of credit. And I think what you said in the series against Toronto, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but you said what's going to happen is Florida's going to wear them out.
Mhm.
Okay. They are so physical. Like, I think it's a bad rap against Florida. I really do. And I think we probably have this. You started this conversation with the Tigers. We probably have it with the Tigers too. We think it's a really good pitching staff, but offensively, no. Hold on. Their offense is good.
Right.
Well, it's not great. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to try to compare it to the Dodgers or the Phillies or the Yankees, but their offense is good. Their offense is good enough. There's a couple of, I'd like to see a couple of enhancements, but but we labeled them pitching because of last year.
Mhm.
And I think we label Florida because of their physicality and because of their depth and the lack of a quote unquote superstar. I love it. Alexander Barkov. I think he's awesome, but I wouldn't call him a superstar. That we think that, they kind of win boringly. Bullcrap.
Mm-mm.
They're scoring 4, 5, 6 goals a game, man. Look at their numbers in the playoffs. So I'm glad in that sense, but I do expect Edmonton to respond.
You know what's interesting, Shep? And to me, I think there's a difference between playing physical and getting in on teams and leaning on them or laying on them and enforcing and imposing your will on people and playing dumb. And like what Mark said, Edmonton trying to play Florida's game is dumb for two reasons. Because number one, Florida does it to a perfection, okay? And number two, when Edmonton does it, you're acting out of emotion. And I saw an Edmonton team last night act out of emotion. That's not playing physical. That's playing stupid. That's doing stupid things. That's retaliating after the whistle, and et cetera, et cetera. Play your game is a statement that is thrown around far too often, but I think it is very applicable to the Oilers. And Shep, the Oilers, to their credit, every game this series, I think the Oilers, all 3 games, have set the tempo by getting the puck in deep, keeping the puck in deep, making their defensemen pay the price, and they've been rewarded every game early on in the game. And Florida just keeps coming back. Last night, they lost their collective minds, though. That was a tough watch in the third period. That was a tough watch.
Yeah, I don't think they were coming back anyway, but you're right. I mean, it was a hard watch in the third. 21 penalties isn't going to cut it. You're going to give another team 11 power play chances in a Stanley Cup Finals. Evander Kane especially. Now, look, his cross check in front of the net I thought was very weak. Okay, but as soon as you recognize that, both teams, because Florida took plenty of penalties too. You're talking about, I forget exactly how many they had, 140 penalty minutes, I think, between the two. Both teams have to recognize how a game is being called. I mean, players tell us that. That's not you and me talking. Players tell us that. You have to recognize in any sport, how far are they going to give you in the zone? Oh, he's calling them low today, so just be consistent. And they were pretty consistent, even though I thought some of it was kind of a little bit of a soft whistle.
Thank you. Early. Yes.
Yeah. So, when you say Edmonton set the tone, just because they had some good chances early and could it get by Bobrovsky, or are you saying the first period in general?
I thought early the officials set the tone with a couple softies.
Okay.
And then what happens is when you have to make calls on the automatic ones, then the guys get a little frustrated. Is this going to be one of those games you're going to insert yourself? I felt that they inserted themselves with those first couple of calls early. I really did. Yeah. After that, I know a lot of people complained about it, but I thought it was mostly legitimate other than those early calls. I really did.
Did you agree with splitting up McDavid and Draisaitl to start the game?
No.
I didn't either.
No, sorry, I don't. Skinner was awful. You know how he is, though. This goes back to what we were talking about with Edmonton. Listen, that guy could bounce back and be the first star of the game on Thursday night. And you know, that's been Edmonton's MO. It's worked for them. It's amazing. I don't get it. It defies, description, but that's kind of been the routine for the Oilers during this run the last couple of years.
Yeah, I'm not gonna defend him, but I don't think he was awful. I don't know how many of those goals you expected him to start. He had a number of I think screens in front of him. I think guys were not being as heavy on the body as they needed to be to help clear the way for him. He would have needed, at least on a couple of them, to have a miraculous save. Now, does he have to be better? Yes, but I don't think he was awful. I thought the team in general in front of him was more awful than the goalie himself.
Yeah, complete meltdown. It's good for them that they have an extra day off. I think they need it. I really do. Just, don't play their game. You're not going to out-Panther the Panthers. It doesn't make sense to me, Shep,
what doesn't make sense to me? Here's what doesn't make sense to me. I mean, Paul Maurice, I'm sure you watched it. His interview during the game was fantastic, all right?
Yeah.
He's and you know him. He's such a good dude. You can tell why people want to play for him. He's coached 27 seasons. Only Scotty Bowman has coached more games in the history of the league. He's got over 900 wins. He's never been coach of the year. How does that matter? I mean, how do you figure that? Honestly.
I
mean, you and I covered Jacques Demers.
Yeah.
Jacques Demers was okay. He did win a cup with your Habs, last one for a Canadian team, '93. But he was named back-to-back Coach of the Year. Okay, when he was with the Red Wings, he won it in back-to-back seasons. I don't know how a guy like Pat Burns can win it 3 times and Paul Maurice can't win it once.
Yeah, You know what? It's funny you say that. Let me get this read because you bring up Scotty Bowman and Paul Maurice. Something popped in my head last night, Shep, and I want to hear what you think about that.
Very dangerous place.
Well, and I was having conversations with myself too. So.
Were you yelling at yourself
all the time? You're dumb. You're dumb. If you're ready to take charge of your financial future, look no further than my friends at the Wealth Advantage Group. They're located in historic downtown Northville, owned by 2 handsome fellas who also happen to be brothers. They offer personalized expert guidance to help navigate the complexities of financial planning. Listen, everybody's different. What they do for my family, what they do for Shep family, what they do for your family, it could be 3 different plans, but these are guys that are doing it for a ton of people. They have clients in over 20 different states. The investment world is a complex one, and if you're ready to start taking your finances more seriously, it might be time to work with the experts. Reach out to the Wealth Advantage Group at 248-773-8574. Check out their website at www.thewealthadv.com. All right, so I'm going to play Shep, I'm gonna play the role of a douchey guy and tell you that I had a quick conversation with Iron Mike Keenan yesterday, and
cool.
Iron Mike Keenan couldn't have been a cooler guy. He was at the Feldman golf outing, and me being the nerd that I am, I made a quick comment to him. I said, I know everybody wants to talk to you about the '94 Rangers. Can I talk to you about the '91 Canada Cup team? And he beamed. He got this big smile. He goes, nobody wants to talk about that. And I was like, you and Pat Burns on the same bench? I said, they could have made a sitcom out of that. Funny guy, all that stuff, okay? So last night, the reason why I bring that up is last night I'm watching the game and I'm watching the interview that you just brought up, okay? And whoever it was, the girl with the microphone is
Emily Kaplan, right?
Yeah, I don't even remember who it was. I apologize. No disrespect. And they're interviewing Paul Maurice. And Shep, could you imagine that happening, right?
No.
Mike Keenan and Scotty Bowman.
Right.
Could you imagine somebody from one of the networks walking up to Scotty Bowman or walking up to John Hahn and going, hey, John, we need to let this young reporter on the bench.
He's the PR director, everybody.
Yeah, sorry. We need to let this young reporter on the bench to do an interview with Scotty Bowman in the second period of Game 3 of the Stanley Cup. I would have given anything to be in that room to watch the fire and brimstone. I would have given anything. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is amazing, but that's what comes with TV contracts. And I give all those coaches credit for doing it. They do it in the NBA. They're doing it in the NFL, as you see.
Yeah.
The big, the Apple and the Rokus, they're all doing it in Major League Baseball. This has become, and I don't know how you feel about it. Hell, even the network in Florida last year interviewed players after a home run once in a while, or interviewed them before going on the field, back on the field. I think it's cool to have the access. It's cool to have the insight. But I believe there are certain things with athletes that, you should leave alone. And I get why networks want it, okay, because they feel it's something people really want. I personally, you interviewing the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks while play is going on, knowing that it's taped, is a little ridiculous.
Yep.
And it's the same thing in hockey. Okay, they go to commercial break, and what they do is they say, all right, you get time for 2 questions. There's 3 minutes, and 3, 2, 1, go. They do the interview. It's all done, and then they play it back when they come back from commercial. I get all that. But I think there are certain places we shouldn't be, and that's probably one of them. During the Stanley Cup Finals, give them some breathing room. You've got to find a different way to – you've got analysts. You have 2 analysts there, and I think they're really good. I do. I thought both analysts were very good. Kenny Albert, okay. But the 2 analysts, very good. Get more out of them.
Yep.
What is it we're hoping to get from the coach? Now, Paul Maurice showed some, personality there that I think a lot of people really like. But, I mean, come on. Can we give it a little bit of a breather there for those guys because they're trying to work?
Shep, I couldn't agree more. And I guess my response would be, if you're going to get him for 2 minutes after the damn period, you don't want us to be standing on
That's
the
a good one. Yeah, that's good.
Like, that's their domain. I'm sorry. I'm a firm believer in that. That's their domain, man.
Yeah, I agree. I had a good debate with a former Tiger. I was on the field of play, and he comes up to me and he said, "Hey, Shep, just out of curiosity, why do you guys have to be in the clubhouse before batting practice?" And I said, "Well," I said, there's a lot of reasons for it. I said, if you wanted me out here, like Jim Leland did, I said, the only chance I would get any of you guys is when you're walking out of the dugout. I could interview Sean right there, but while I'm interviewing Sean, 4 or 5 guys are going to walk by.
You got it.
Then I'm not going to get my guys, right? And if you're telling me that I got to wait after batting practice, then by then I only get a chance for one guy too. And I said, and let's face it, media pays a lot of money for this stuff. And he bristled at that. He says, look, that's our house. That's our domain. You're not supposed to be in there. And I said, okay, that's fine. I respect it. I said, but this is why you guys get paid so much money, is because of media rights. No, that's not true. So we got in a pretty good debate about it. I think I won the debate, Sean, but I understand why there are certain places they don't want us to be. And I've been in the minority here. I don't know how you feel about it. There are certain things we don't deserve to know.
I agree.
We can ask the questions all we want, but we shouldn't bristle when we don't get the answers.
I agree.
Certain things we don't need to know. So that's how I feel about it.
I have a funny story that you just kicked in my head. I want to get to with Scotty Bowman, who was one of the cranky, most cantankerous men ever. He just was. You never knew which Scotty you were going to get, and he did it by design. He knew what he was doing. He really did. But
shot pucks at me in St. Louis. Me and Freddie Human. Go ahead.
Let me first tell you about our friends at Legacy. Thousands of Metro Detroiters have already called Legacy to help with their home and auto insurance. What are you waiting for? These are guys that will literally call you when they notice that changes are coming down the pipe. Seriously, did it 2 weeks ago. We were on our way to dinner. Alex, shout out to Alex Julio, calls us. He was like, let me do this. We're going to move this, and this. Hey, by the way, instead of getting charged more, you're actually going to save money now. That's the difference when you call Legacy. Legacy has helped our listeners by not only doing things like that, but they fix mistakes other agents have made. They ask the right questions to put the right coverage put in place to properly protect you. And yep, help save you some money. Chances are, if you haven't checked your policies, you're probably paying too much anyway. Give Legacy a chance to help with your home, your cars, life insurance, Medicare enrollment, or your business insurance needs. Give them a call, 586-209-4106. That's 586-209-4106, or visit legacypartnersins.com to get started with your new quotes. Okay, so I'm not sitting here trying to say that Scotty was my buddy, but Shep, we had a pretty good relationship, and I was able to call him long after he was gone. And every time I called him at a couple different radio stations, he came on. And I think you will attest to this, breaking every NHL rule along the way. The 2002 playoffs, they used to have the curtain up in the locker room. Remember the curtain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'll never forget Adrian Dater from the Denver newspaper, I forget what newspaper it was complaining about the Red Wings and the lack of media availability. And I went on the radio and I said, there isn't one word that he said that is false. There is not one word that there is a curtain. They do not come out. I've had to give puppy eyes to Darren McCarty more times than you could shake a stick at. And he'd go, all right, what do you need? And then he'd give you the soundbite and things like that. But Shep, every now and again, you caught even Scotty Bowman on a good day. I would have never dreamed to go into Scotty Bowman's office. Would you? I wouldn't. I would have never wasted my time. One day he asked me in because I made some quote. I said, you know, there's this 8-year-old kid that wants to hear the whole story why you left your hometown and you left after winning 4 cups in a row in Montreal. And it took him a second. And then he kind of smiled and he figured out, you know, I was talking about me. And he goes like this. He pointed to me, sat me down in the office. Shep told me A through Z of that story. Told me A through Z of that story. That's it. If you're invited in, that's something different, okay?
Right,
so
sure.
when I then, in typical Scotty Bowman fashion, I think I'm in. We're buddies now, right? The next day he pretended like he didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
Typical Scotty Bowman stuff. But when you bring that up, Shep, that if you're invited in, that's one thing. But I'm sorry, I'm one of those people, I don't know if it's old school or what have you, but when you said that, I couldn't agree with you more. There are some places we shouldn't be. That's their inner sanctum. Sometimes it does no good to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I always try to put myself in the other person's shoes. So, you know, somebody brought up a really good point during the chat here. Jack Nicklaus hates it in golf. What do you think about miking up players while the game is going on? I've asked for it. Full disclosure, I asked for it during spring training games.
Mm-hmm.
If you're miking up a player during batting practice, I get it. Again, this depends, you know, on the sport, because people think like, oh, he's mic'd up during the game for Hard Knocks. No, they're not asking him questions, you know, in football. In baseball, I don't think we have any right when a guy's at shortstop to mic him up and ask him questions while he's trying to focus on what's going on during the play.
Right.
And the same thing, I'm glad, you know, he brought up Jack Nicklaus. Jack Nicklaus hates it. He's right. You just tee off, you go in the right rough, especially this weekend at Oakmont, and you got announcers trying to ask you questions, and during that walk, when you should be thinking about your next shot, I think it's invasive, and I think it's too invasive.
Yeah, no doubt. There were a couple other, Chris as well brought up Lane Hudson, no-brainer, absolutely no-brainer. Dave had something. What did Dave say? During the game, interviews are ridiculous. Shep, if you're playing an all-star game or some silliness like that, whatever.
Yeah, that's why I said spring training or batting practice in baseball, for example. I just think it's TV trying to do it just for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's also, you know what, look at us. We've got the access, so we're going to ask it. That doesn't make it good television.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the best television is when guys are doing something that you haven't seen before, or you're first guessing as an analyst, and you're setting things up and you're marrying it with good graphics and so on and so forth. I think that's when people really appreciate it, or good shots of emotion. It doesn't have to be some guy answering 2 questions stone-faced and barely giving you anything. That's right. What you're getting a lot of times in the NBA Finals too right now.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Does this intrigue you, this NBA final, Shep? Because for me, I'm telling you point blank, I don't watch it because there's always hockey on, except till the finals. Then I can watch it in the finals, and you know what? I am intrigued by it. I'm not going to lie. It's not the same. I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, man, I'm all in or anything. It's not the same. It hasn't been the same for a long time.
Not for the same as what? What do you mean?
I used to love it. I used to really, really love it. I really did.
Give me a time frame when you used to love it.
The late 80s.
Well, that's a long time ago, bud.
No, and I'm curious. That's how long ago for me. I'm being dead.
And it's also coincides with how good the Pistons were.
Yeah, I think I got into the Pistons, obviously, like everybody else. It was hard not to in that 03 to 08 range, but I can't sit back and say that I was an NBA guy. If the Pistons were on, of course you watch the Pistons. But the difference, like with the NBA and me, and I don't give a crap what you have on. You could have on 2 Quebec Major Junior Hockey League teams, and I'm going to sit down and watch a game. You put on a Denver Nugget, Minnesota Timberwolf game, I'm out like a light. I'm tired. Listen, I'm just shooting straight. I'm out like a light. NBA finals are different. It's a tip of the cap, respect and everything. And I like the story of Indiana and Rick Carlisle. We are, gosh, I can't believe it's been so long now, Shep, 22 years now that he's been gone and everything.
Story from me about Rick Carlisle.
Yeah.
I was calling some games with him. He wouldn't let me on the bus in Seattle, going to shoot around. Look, it is intriguing to me. I picked Indiana before the playoffs began. Of course, I also picked Denver. So out there it goes. But I think it's intriguing because I think Indiana reminds me a lot of past Piston teams, whether they made the finals or not, because there's no superstar there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I really, really like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I like him as a leader. I like him as a teammate. I love how he goes out and he credits, to me, maybe it's the Canadian in him. He talks as close to a hockey player as any basketball player I've ever seen. He's always crediting somebody else for what's going on. So I really like that dude. But they play son of a bitch defense. And I don't know how, if you're a Piston fan of the past, they were really good defensively in 2004. We all know how good they were defensively during the bad boy era. That is a feel for me where I'm like, man, I can relate to this team a little bit. And I relate to the Indiana team because they don't have that star. And they've got a point guard who plays with a chip on his shoulder. And I love that about him because there were a lot of guys on that 04 team for the Pistons who played with a chip on their shoulder because Boston didn't want Chauncey Billups and Orlando didn't want Ben Wallace and Washington didn't want Richard Hamilton. And that's really cool stuff, right? So there's a connection there for me with both those teams while I'm watching them. I've been entertained by it.
Yeah, and like Chris said, I gave up with the NBA, quit being a team sport. It just seems like it's all about me. I love the late 80s when they started to, when they used Bird Magic, Dr. J, Patrick Ewing. When they started to do that stuff, I was still in on the league. I really was. In somewhere along the way, I just, maybe my taste buds changed or whatever the case may be. But
yeah, there are certain things that happened, I think, that probably turned a lot of people off. Maybe money is part of it. I don't know. It's funny how money hasn't turned anybody off from the NFL. Money hasn't turned anybody off from Major League Baseball, where they make a slew of money.
Yeah.
I don't think, like Chris says, I gave up on the NBA when it stopped being a team sport and it's now all about me. I don't think that's true. I don't think Indiana's all about me. Who's it all about? Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Haliburton, Miles Turner? No, it's team sport. They haven't had one guy in the NBA Finals score 20 points or more. So it's not about them. Is it all about OKC when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, one of the first things he says last night was, listen, I can't do what I do without guys getting me the ball, screening for me, rebounding the basketball, kicking it out, giving them all kinds of credit? I don't think so. I think what you're referring to is guys jamming, standing over somebody, doing the, various celebrations. Okay, that could be self-promotion. Why don't you feel that way about a closer who gets a big strikeout like Alex Lang used to do? What about a guy who pimps a home run like Juan Soto does? What about guys who score goals and they have different celebrations? What about, and the creme de la creme, is the NFL where they actually rehearse their celebrations. Come on, Sean, you just scored. Let's get in a boat in the end zone and everybody row in the same direction. I think that's what it's more about than anything else for people.
Shep, I think part of it to me that and what made it, I hate to use this term, but us against them, was watching those guys for 2 weeks during the 2004 NBA playoffs talk about how the Detroit Pistons and the Indiana Pacers were setting basketball back 30 years. I love that. Remember,
But they did it. But Jordan did that in 1991 too, Sean.
and that stuff. That's what gets you in. But like the game itself, Shep, I'd be lying if I said, yeah, oh man, I am all in tomorrow night. I'll tune in. I'll watch the Tigers as well, but it's not, when the Stanley Cup's on, I'm sitting right over there and it's just like, shut up. I'm not, I don't like to talk during the period. Let's just watch the dumb game,
Yeah, but you played it and you grew up with it and you love it and you know it. So I think people gravitate toward that.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's passion.
Yeah. There's bound to happen with that. I would just say, they said that maybe in 2004. They also said it in 91. Jordan said that about the Pistons, and that's why I've always hated Mikey, is because of what he said about the Pistons. And it's wrong. But if we're going to say I loved it in the late 80s and early 90s, and then you had that same pocket of success for the Pistons where you liked it from 2002 to 2008, and they're saying those things, then, you've been able to overcome that. So it's not as the mutual respect is probably limited more so than it is in the NHL. But the NHL is unique, okay? So not everything can be compared evenly. The NHL is very unique. You're not going to find a lot of that stuff taking place. You don't find guys going up to Mark Scheifele, hugging him, talking to him for a good 45 seconds and say how badly they feel for him and his family. I mean, you just don't find that very often in other sports. So I think that's the difference.
All right, couple more things before we get out of here. All About Catering, LLC, full-service caterer. You looking for a graduation?
Yes.
Oh, let me tell you something. They'll take care of you. They did it twice for me. They can do weddings, bridal showers, corporate events, anything you need catering for, from 25 to 4,000 people. All About Catering.
Wow, 4,000. That belongs in your backyard.
And we'll take care of you. Customer service satisfaction, their number one goal. Do not sweat your next big event. Just go to allaboutcateringllc.com today to see their menus and all their 5-star reviews. Give them a call, 586-731-1398. Rick and his gang will take care of you. They've done it for us. They will do it for you as well. Tigers leading 5-1. Shep, right now, in case anybody is keeping track, the Tigers have a 2.5 game lead on the Yankees for the best team in the American League. There is no reason to believe this Tiger team is going to fade. None. I'm sorry. I don't have any. I don't see
it either, but their lead on the Yankees to me means nothing. I mean,
no, it doesn't mean nothing.
San Francisco a few years ago had 107 wins, franchise record. They were really non-existent in the playoffs. I think the Braves had the best record in the National League, or close to it a year ago. A non-factor in the playoffs. I think the bigger question is this: what do they need, and how desperately do you think they need it? Where are you going to improve this team? Look, just because they're about to win their 44th game doesn't mean that this team is good enough to win it all.
Agree.
Because somebody else, the Yankees aren't standing pat. Dodgers aren't standing pat. Astros probably won't stand pat, and they lead the AL West right now. They've overtaken Seattle. So I'm not saying you have to make a huge deal, but you got to sprinkle something in there to probably legitimize yourself against teams that are going to get better at the trade deadline. So I don't think there's any reason we would think they would fade. Maybe injuries, but look, they've done it without Veerling. They've done it without Wenzel Perez for an extended period of time, obviously back now. Parker Meadows is back, but they did it without him. They've done it without Mize. They've done it without Joe. They've done it without Reese Olson. They've done it without Alex Cobb. All right. So there's no doubt in my mind that they can do it, because I think they have the best bench coach in baseball, period. They also have the best pitching coach in baseball, period. But other teams are going to improve their roster. They're going to get better. So this team's going to have to do something. And I still see a glaring need on the left side of the infield.
I know everybody loves him, Shep. I know everybody loves Zach McKinstry. Don't we need a legitimate third baseman? Don't we, seriously?
I don't think the Tigers ever view him as such. Lead off earlier tonight, a triple, and then brought home, scored the game's first run on a sacrifice fly. I don't think anybody views him as like, okay, why don't we just put Zach McKinstry at third base? But I think he's a valuable piece.
100%. To repeat, I think we need a legitimate third baseman. I really do.
How do you go about doing that?
That's exactly it. You're absolutely right. Bo Bichette's name has been out there, obviously, is potential in terms of third baseman. I mean, it was crazy. People were talking about Bregman over the weekend. Could you imagine the oddity of that? And could he be available? And Shep, it's not
you'd
that
you'd have to give up a lot, I would guess.
I would think so.
Like, even though he can opt out, I would think you'd have to give up quite a bit for him. He'd be great. Don't get me wrong, but I think you're probably looking closer to a guy like Nolan Arenado, where you could get him from the Cardinals if he waived his no trade clause,
right,
for prospects without giving in. I know people love these guys, but obviously not Max Clark. But you wouldn't have to give up Rayner. I don't think you'd have to give up McGonigal either. So I think you could get him for some other prospects, and the Cardinals would be happy with it, and they might pick up $5 million of his salary.
And in an answer to your question, an extra thing, I think one more arm in the pen would make me feel really happy too. And that, but I think you could say that about every team in the MLB, right?
Yeah, I guess here. So, and I think those are both legitimate points. Who do you remove from the roster in order to put those guys on the roster?
Well, I have a few ideas.
Akil Badu's not on the roster, Sean. So.
He won't go away either. Did you see he accepted his outright? That guy, it is Freddy Krueger. He's coming back. Like 1, 2, Akil's coming for you.
Not with this team. He's not with this team.
I can't imagine.
So who are the couple of names then? Who are the guys?
I think Shep is the we're not at that point yet. I think, as you know, as the deadline gets closer, you're going to hear names out there. You're going to hear people. Okay, now this team has fallen back. Maybe this guy. It's fun to talk about right now, but the reality is, I think you know this, and everybody else out there knows that to put a circle around a guy right now is almost an exercise in futility. Because if a team's in the playoff mode, well, all of a sudden that guy that you thought was available in June 10th isn't going to be available in 50 days or whatever, and vice versa. But that's just, so I'll wait and see. And that's what you have to do. Unfortunately, is you have to look at the teams that, okay, who might be willing to make a move, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Shep lost for just a second. We'll get back. I like what Tom said here because I'm at the exact same point. All right, Shep, you came back. I think you're muted. I don't know. Is that you? Is that me? All right, hold on a second. Shep, you're muted. You're muted. And now he's frozen. I don't think that's me, is it? Tom said, I'm going to continue to enjoy the Tigers season so far. Hope they keep it going. That's where I'm at with this team. I mean, no joke. That's exactly where I'm at with this team right now. I'm not going to pick, but yeah, thank you, Tom. Tom, at the same time, you know what I would say, and I hope you would agree with me. We've kind of graduated to that Lions level. Where just getting into the playoffs isn't going to be fun and cute for me anymore. It isn't. I'm sorry. That's not going to be fun and cute for me any longer. Let me do one more thing and then we can get out of here. Hey, when it comes time to get yourself a house, whether you're buying or selling, you need to contact the right agent. Who do we recommend? Lindsay Broadwell. Your house is probably the biggest investment you'll ever make, and that's why you need a pro. Lindsay grew up on the mean streets and has expanded her team all over Southeast Michigan. She's an expert in all facets of the business. When it's time to move, our friend Lindsay and her team will make sure you get the most out of your house and everything goes smoothly when finding your new home. Buyer, seller, first-time buyer, doesn't matter. Make sure you contact Lindsay at BroadwellHomes.com. She'll help you with everything from start to close. Licensed realtor at Real Broker LLC. Start your search today at BroadwellHomes.com. All right, I'm going to be with you guys tomorrow. Tigers are just fun to watch. I'm with you, 100%. That, no doubt. Tigers are fun to watch. I'm with you guys. The expectations, I kind of like having the expectations. Just getting in isn't going to be, take care of me. I like having the advanced expectations now. All right, we got to get out of here. I'll be back tomorrow, and then we've got the hockey intermission. There's Shep. Hi, Shep.
Sorry. This computer's an absolute piece of crap.
It's okay. It's okay. It's all right.
Got the hockey. So you got the hockey show again tomorrow? What the puck?
Yeah, Thursday, and then we'll do Saturday. And quite frankly, Shep, I'm hoping it goes to 7. I'm not sure that it will. I'm not sure.
Well, I'm hoping it goes to 7 too, because I want to be entertained. It's not that I don't like watching baseball, but I've thoroughly enjoyed the Stanley Cup playoffs so much. I just want it to go on as long as I can. And I got to be honest with you, I just can't get enough watching Connor McDavid. I think it's so cool how Edmonton, especially on the power play, they just drop it back and let him gain speed. And I love watching the defenseman go, holy crap, here he comes again. Everybody start backpedaling a little bit. It's fun to watch, dude.
I conversely love watching Darnell Nurse, because you never know what you're going to get out of Darnell Nurse. You never know. That first goal last night, honestly, if I was one of the ticket people, I would have charged him money for a ticket. You had the best seat in the house. That'll cost you $3,000. It was just watching the play go by. If you remember, I challenge you and everybody else out there, go back and watch that first goal last night. It got to the point where even Stu Skinner, he's standing in front of him and he pushes out of the way as if to say, dude, you can't be here. I don't know what happened. Like, his brain just stopped for about 7 seconds. The Darnell Nurse experience is a fun ride, man.
Can I ask you a question before we get out of here? And it is hockey related.
Yes.
I read an article earlier today that the Islanders are listening to trade offers for number 1 overall. Okay. Mm-hmm. And many people feel like there is only one number 1 worthy player in this draft. It's the Victor Wembanyama of the NHL draft. Now, you may disagree, but I'm just telling you what so-called experts say. Would you trade Lucas Raymond for the first overall pick, then go out and sign a decent-sized free agent to take his role? If Lucas Raymond could get you the first overall pick, you take the defenseman, the stud defenseman. I'm sorry, I just lost his name. If you took him and then you replenish what you lost with Raymond, you get, let's just say, sake of argument, I know you're going to shudder at this, Mitch Marner. Okay? Suddenly, you get 2 big pieces for your team, and you feel like perhaps you're better than you were before. Would you be, I don't know if that's would do it. Okay. These are all hypotheticals. We love the hypotheticals, don't we? Mm-hmm. Is that something that you would strongly consider in your mind?
No. And I'll tell you why I wouldn't, because I think, if you're taking, and personally, Shep, I think there are 2 really good players. I think that kid in Saginaw isn't getting enough love. I really do. I know a lot of people think that Matthew Schaefer, the defenseman, is going to go number 1 overall. I think the kid in Saginaw is pretty good. I just do. Just one man's opinion. Maybe it's because I've seen him and he's close to home and everything. Right. I wouldn't do that, and I'll tell you why I wouldn't do that, because I think what you're doing is now you're also telling us that you're going to continue to kick the can down the road and have another built-in excuse. Well, you can't expect this guy to come in right away and help us out and everything. I think this is the point in time where you have to bring these guys up and you have to figure out which guys you want to be here. And Steve Yzerman, as much as he doesn't want to, is going to have to make some hard decisions about some of these young players to try to improve the skill level of his team. He's going to have to.
But Sean, okay, fair enough. I asked for the question, or asked for the answer, and I got it.
All right.
What if one of the hard decisions is doing just that? Why can't that be the hard decision from a guy who had 80 points, which is fine, led the team, but we all know it's not enough. What if you think the weakest part of this team, and I believe you've said this, is on the back end? Why wouldn't you do something like that, knowing you can get similar production, if not better production, from somebody that you've signed as a free agent, and then you draft the stud defenseman?
I think, Shep, it isn't just, I think it's twofold. I think the back end of the defense core, and I think up front they have a bunch of guys right now, and nobody likes to say it, because we all have to drop our pants over this guy and that guy, and I think they have a bunch of guys right now. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. I know that probably, but in this town, everybody, this guy, we have a bunch of good players right now.
Right.
Detroit has a bunch of good players.
So I think you're making my point. If you get a chance to get an elite guy, okay, and that's what they say. That's what they project him to be, okay? Mm-hmm. Who knows? The Cardinals thought Jordan Walker was going to be elite, and they brought him, he was supposedly going to make it right out of training camp or spring training, and it really hasn't materialized much for the Cardinals. So we all know what the prospects are. There's a reason they're called prospects. But if he's supposed to be an elite guy and you get a chance to get a guy who might be as good, if not better, as a free agent, why wouldn't you do it? That's the way to shake things up. Maybe that's the tough decision that Yzerman has to come to conclusion with by going, you know what? This ain't working. It's time for me to do something drastic. And rather than think, this gives me a built-in excuse, maybe it gives you, look, this is what we need to do because we're at the point now where enough is enough.
I would do it with knowns. I would have no problem. I think the thing that I would do is he's going to have to circle 2 or 3 guys and just say, as much as I want to keep all these guys, and he said it, his words, not mine, you're going to have to give some of these guys away if you want to improve the talent level, because and again, I always have to bring this up because I'm not saying that nobody can develop to that level. I'm not saying that Casper can't. I'm not saying that Nygaard or ASP no. Right now, today, June 10th, there is nothing special. There isn't. I'm sorry. You have a bunch of good players, okay?
Nate Danielson isn't special.
Same thing. I'm sorry. You know what? You're going to have to show it to me. So, Shep, that's what I would do. I would say, if I were a general manager, and I love to play this game, I love to play you be the GM. If I was a general manager and you called me and you asked me what I was interested in, I would start with Casper and I would start with ASP. Non-negotiable. You want my quality? You want my quality? We're a little long in the tooth, okay? We're Boston. Brad Marchand is not going to be in our future plans the next 2 or 3 years. But you have a guy that's going to give you an additional boost. The first 2 guys I'm going to ask for are honestly Casper and ASP. Maybe Danielson, okay?
But you said none of them are special. So what difference would that make?
Because right now, that hurts the Detroit Red Wings. If I'm a team in contention right now, or a team like Boston going in the other direction, I can sit back and say, we got time.
Yeah, but we're talking about the Islanders. Only the Islanders. I'm talking about the first overall pick and getting an impact player like a defenseman.
If I were the Islanders, I would say you're giving me 2 of your prospects. This is the number 1 pick.
Not Raymond.
No, I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
I wouldn't do it. I think there are, whether people want to admit it or not, there are more concerns than people want to admit. I think the way he faded, when you go back to the end of the 24 season, he finished like a ball of fire. He was really good. Yeah, he was. Okay. When you go back to the last really time after the 4 Nations, that's a little red flag. Yeah. I think it's a little red flag. But if I'm not mistaken, he's a left defenseman. Would I do that? No, I wouldn't do it. And I think what you're telling your fan base anyway, a fan base that's frustrated, and Steve obviously isn't making moves to make the fan base happy, but I think what you're telling everybody and the guys in the room that there's already a level of frustration is, hey, don't worry, guys, we'll have another left defenseman in 2 years. It'll help the team, and for Dylan Larkin to come out and say what he said last year, I think there was some frustration there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think he's just speaking like a fan would speak. There's frustration there. And I think, quite honestly, I think Steve Yzerman gave it back, and he was showing a little frustration that his leaders weren't doing what they were supposed to do. So
yeah.
100% agree. That's good stuff. Thanks, bud. Appreciate that.
All right, bud. All right. Have a great week. Right. We'll talk next Monday, right?
That's great. Thanks, bud. Yep.
Yeah. God bless you. Let me see if I can end this thing. All right. Hold on. This will be fun, Shep. I think I ended it. Watch.
Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Baligian. Executive produced by Sean Baligian and Todd Losey. Theme song, incidental music, and related sound effects are from Still Alive by Anti-Ghost. Engineering, mixing, and graphic design support provided by the Unsyndicated Podcast team. Don't forget to like and subscribe on all your favorite channels. While you're there, be sure to rate and review the podcast. Call the Unsyndicated hotline at 248-237-3257.